Have you ever walked into a room and immediately felt something was off, even though everything looked perfectly normal? Or maybe you've had that strange feeling about someone you just met, like you could see right through their surface personality to something deeper? If you're nodding along, chances are you might be experiencing what many call the INFJ sixth sense. Today, we're diving deep into one of the most mysterious and powerful cognitive functions in the Myers-Briggs system, introverted intuition, or NI for short. This isn't just some mystical mumbo-jumbo. We're talking about a very real, very fascinating way that certain minds process information and perceive the world around them. What exactly is introverted intuition? Let's start with the basics, shall we? Introverted intuition is the dominant cognitive function for INFJs, and it's quite different from what most people think of as intuition. You know how some folks talk about having a gut feeling or making quick decisions based on a hunch? Well, NI is more like having a mental detective that never sleeps. Think of it this way: while most people's minds work like a flashlight, focusing on one thing at a time, the INFJ's NI works more like a floodlight that's constantly scanning the environment for patterns, connections, and hidden meanings. It's always running in the background, collecting tiny pieces of information and weaving them together into a bigger picture. This cognitive function doesn't just process what's happening right now. Oh no, it's much more complex than that. NI is constantly looking at past experiences, current situations, and future possibilities all at the same time. It's like having a time machine in your brain that can connect dots across different time periods and situations. The pattern recognition superpower. Here's where things get really interesting. INFJs with strong NI don't just see what's in front of them, they see the patterns behind what's happening. It's like they've got this internal pattern matching system that's constantly running comparisons and making connections. Let me give you an example. Imagine you're at a party, and there's this couple who seems perfectly happy on the surface. They're laughing, holding hands, the whole 9 yards. But an INFJ might pick up on tiny inconsistencies, maybe the way she hesitates before agreeing with him, or how his smile doesn't quite reach his eyes, or the slight tension in their body language when they think no one's looking. Most people would see a happy couple. The INFJ's NI, however, might be quietly filing away these micro-observations and connecting them to patterns they've seen before. Without being able to explain exactly why, they might walk away thinking, something's not right there. And here's the kicker: they're usually right. Not because they're psychic, but because their brains are incredibly good at processing subtle information that others miss completely. How NI creates those moments? You know those moments when the answer to a problem just suddenly pops into your head? Like you've been struggling with something for days, and then boom, the solution appears out of nowhere? That's NI at work, and it's absolutely fascinating how it happens. Unlike other cognitive functions that work step by step, NI operates more like a pressure cooker. It takes in all this information, processes it unconsciously, and then, when the pressure builds up enough, it releases the insight all at once. It's why INFJs often can't explain how they know something, they just know. This process can be incredibly frustrating for both the INFJ and the people around them. Imagine trying to convince your boss that a certain business strategy won't work, but all you can say is, "I just have a feeling about this." Not exactly the most convincing argument in a data-driven world, right? But here's the thing. When you track INFJ predictions over time, they tend to be eerily accurate. They might not be able to show you the spreadsheet or the logical reasoning, but their pattern recognition system has been quietly processing hundreds of variables that others haven't even noticed. The dark side of the INFJ sixth sense? Now, before we get too carried away singing the praises of NI, let's talk about the flip side. Having this kind of intuitive processing isn't all sunshine and rainbows. In fact, it can be downright exhausting. Imagine if you couldn't turn off your pattern recognition system. You're constantly picking up on subtle cues, feeling the emotional undercurrents in every situation, and seeing potential problems that haven't happened yet. It's like being a smoke detector that's permanently set to overly sensitive. This constant processing can lead to what many INFJs describe as analysis paralysis. They see so many different possibilities and potential outcomes that making decisions becomes incredibly difficult. Should they trust their intuition about that new job offer? Or are they just being paranoid? Is that friend really pulling away, or are they reading too much into things? The uncertainty can be maddening, especially because NI insights often come without concrete evidence to back them up. It's like having a highly accurate weather forecasting system in your brain, but no one believes your predictions because you can't show them the meteorological data. Reading between the lines, the INFJ communication style. Here's something really interesting about how NI affects communication. INFJs often speak in layers, and they expect others to do the same. When they're talking, they're not just sharing information, they're creating a web of meaning that includes subtext, implications, and hidden connections. This can be incredibly confusing for people who prefer direct communication. An INFJ might say something like, "That meeting went well," but their tone and body language are communicating volumes more. They might be thinking about how the boss's response revealed insecurity, how the team dynamics shifted during the discussion, and what this all means for the project's future success. Meanwhile, their more straightforward colleagues are thinking, "Great, the meeting went well. Moving on." They're not picking up on all those subtle layers of meaning that the INFJ is processing and trying to communicate. This difference in communication styles can lead to a lot of misunderstandings. INFJs might feel like they're constantly having to spell out the obvious, while others might feel like INFJs are being unnecessarily complicated or mysterious. The NI-FE loop. When intuition meets empathy. One of the most powerful combinations in the INFJ cognitive stack is when introverted intuition teams up with extrovert feeling, FE. This creates what many describe as an almost supernatural ability to understand and predict human behavior. The NI function is constantly picking up patterns and making connections, while FE is tuned into the emotional climate around them. Together, they create this incredible ability to read people and situations with remarkable accuracy. An INFJ might meet someone for the first time and immediately sense that they're dealing with unresolved grief, even if that person is putting on a happy face. Their NI is picking up on micro-expressions, word choices, and behavioral patterns, while their FE is reading the emotional undertones. This combination can make INFJs incredibly effective counselors, therapists, and advisors. They don't just hear what people are saying. They understand what people need, often before those people understand it themselves. But again, this comes with a price. Constantly processing other people's emotions and hidden motivations can be incredibly draining. It's like being an emotional sponge that never quite gets wrung out. NI and creativity, seeing what others can't. Here's where the INFJ sixth sense gets really exciting in the realm of creativity and innovation. Because NI is constantly making connections between seemingly unrelated things, INFJs often come up with incredibly original ideas and solutions. They might be reading a book about ancient history and suddenly have an insight about a modern relationship problem. Or they could be watching a nature documentary and get inspired with a solution for a work project. Their brains are constantly cross-referencing information from different domains and creating new combinations. This is why many INFJs are drawn to creative fields like writing, art, music, and design. Their NI function is always generating new possibilities and seeing unique angles that others miss. They're not just thinking outside the box. They're often unaware that the box exists in the first place. But this creative process can be frustrating too. INFJ artists and writers often struggle with perfectionism because their NI shows them this perfect vision of what they want to create. But translating that vision into reality is incredibly challenging. The gap between what they can see and what they can execute can be emotionally devastating. The timing issue, when NI insights come too early. One of the most challenging aspects of having strong NI is that insights often come before the world is ready for them. INFJs frequently find themselves seeing problems or opportunities long before they become obvious to others. This can be incredibly isolating. Imagine seeing that a certain trend is going to cause problems years before it actually does, but nobody believes you because there's no immediate evidence. Or recognizing someone's potential long before they recognize it themselves, but being unable to convince them to take action. INFJs often feel like they're living slightly in the future, which can make it difficult to connect with people who are focused on the present moment. They might be thinking about long-term consequences while everyone else is focused on immediate results. This timing mismatch can lead to a lot of frustration and self-doubt. INFJs might start to question their own insights because they're consistently ahead of the curve. They might think, maybe I'm just being paranoid, or maybe I'm seeing things that aren't really there. Developing and trusting your NI. For INFJs who are just beginning to understand their cognitive functions, learning to trust their NI can be a real journey. Society tends to value concrete evidence and logical reasoning, which can make intuitive insights seem less valuable or reliable. But here's the thing. Your NI has been collecting data and making connections your entire life. Those seemingly random insights are actually based on a massive database of experiences and observations that your conscious mind might not even remember. The key is learning to distinguish between genuine NI insights and anxiety-driven overthinking. Real NI insights tend to have a certain quality. They feel calm and certain, even if you can't explain them. Anxious thoughts, on the other hand, tend to be repetitive and create emotional turbulence. Developing your NI also means learning to be patient with the process. You can't force insights to come, and you can't rush the pattern recognition process. It's more like tending a garden. You create the right conditions and then trust that growth will happen naturally. NI in relationships, the double-edged sword. When it comes to relationships, the INFJ sixth sense can be both a blessing and a curse. On one hand, INFJs often have an incredible ability to understand their partners on a deep level. They can sense needs that haven't been expressed and pick up on problems before they become major issues. This can create incredibly deep and meaningful connections. Partners often feel truly seen and understood by INFJs in a way they've never experienced before. The INFJ's ability to read between the lines and understand emotional subtext can create a level of intimacy that's quite rare. But it can also create problems. INFJs might pick up on their partner's doubts or concerns before their partner is even fully aware of them. They might sense that something is wrong and try to address it, only to be told that they're imagining things or being overly sensitive. This can lead to a dynamic where the INFJ feels like they're constantly walking on eggshells, trying to navigate emotional currents that their partner doesn't even acknowledge exist. It can be incredibly lonely to see and feel so much that others don't recognize. The burden of seeing too much. Let's be honest for a moment, having strong NI isn't always a gift. Sometimes, it feels more like a burden. When you're constantly picking up on subtleties and seeing patterns that others miss, the world can feel like a very complex and sometimes overwhelming place. INFJs often describe feeling like they're carrying everyone else's secrets and unspoken truths. They see through facades and pretenses, which can make social interactions feel exhausting and inauthentic. It's hard to engage in small talk when you're constantly aware of all the deeper currents running underneath. This can lead to a sense of isolation and alienation. INFJs might feel like they're the only ones who see what's really going on, which can be a very lonely place to be. They might start to question whether they're being too sensitive or reading too much into things. The key is learning that seeing more doesn't mean you have to carry more. Just because you can sense someone's pain or see a potential problem doesn't mean you're responsible for fixing it. Learning to maintain healthy boundaries while still honoring your intuitive gifts is one of the most important skills an INFJ can develop. NI and decision-making. The internal compass. One of the most valuable aspects of strong NI is how it functions as an internal compass for decision-making. While other personality types might rely heavily on external data or group consensus, INFJs often have this internal sense of what feels right or wrong. This doesn't mean they ignore facts or other people's opinions, but they have this additional layer of processing that helps them navigate complex decisions. Their NI is constantly running scenarios and assessing how different choices align with their deeper values and long-term vision. This can make INFJs incredibly good at making decisions that others might find difficult or unclear. They might not be able to articulate exactly why one option feels better than another, but their internal processing system has been weighing factors that aren't immediately obvious to others. However, this can also create challenges in collaborative environments where decisions need to be explained and justified. INFJs might find themselves in situations where they know what the right choice is, but they struggle to communicate their reasoning in a way that others find convincing. The future focus, living in tomorrow. INFJs with strong NI often have what feels like a natural orientation toward the future. They're constantly thinking about long-term consequences, potential developments, and how current situations might evolve over time. This future focus can be incredibly valuable in planning and strategic thinking. INFJs often excel at seeing the long-term implications of current decisions and identifying potential problems before they become serious issues. But it can also make it difficult to enjoy the present moment. While others are focused on immediate experiences and current pleasures, INFJs might be mentally fast-forwarding to consider what this all means for tomorrow, next year, or even decades down the line. This can create a sense of restlessness and difficulty with mindfulness practices that emphasize present-moment awareness. INFJs might find themselves constantly pulled toward thinking about what's coming next rather than fully experiencing what's happening now. Practical applications of the INFJ sixth sense. So how can INFJs use their NI gifts in practical ways? First, it's important to recognize that this isn't about becoming a fortune teller or claiming supernatural abilities. It's about understanding and leveraging a very real cognitive strength. In professional settings, INFJs often excel in roles that require understanding complex human dynamics, predicting trends, or solving problems that don't have obvious solutions. They might be great at identifying which employees are struggling before performance issues become apparent, or seeing which market trends are likely to have staying power. In personal relationships, the key is learning to share insights in ways that others can understand and accept. Instead of saying, "I have a feeling that something's wrong," an INFJ might try, "I've noticed a few small changes in your behavior lately, and I'm wondering if everything's okay." The goal isn't to prove that you're right about everything, but to use your insights to create deeper understanding and connection with others. Conclusion: the INFJ sixth sense, that powerful introverted intuition function, is both a remarkable gift and a significant responsibility. It's the ability to see patterns where others see chaos, to understand the hidden dynamics in every situation, and to sense the deeper currents that flow beneath the surface of daily life. But like any powerful tool, it comes with challenges. The constant processing of subtle information can be exhausting. The frustration of seeing things that others don't recognize can be isolating. The responsibility of carrying insights about people and situations can feel overwhelming at times. The key to thriving as an INFJ is learning to honor and develop your intuitive gifts while also maintaining healthy boundaries and realistic expectations. Your NI insights are valuable, but they're not infallible. You can see more than most people, but that doesn't mean you're responsible for fixing everything you perceive. Remember that your sixth sense is actually a very sophisticated form of pattern recognition that's been developing throughout your entire life. Trust it, but also be patient with others who don't process information the same way you do. Your unique perspective is needed in this world, but it's most effective when it's shared with compassion and understanding. Whether you're just beginning to understand your INFJ traits or you've been on this journey for years, remember that your intuitive gifts are meant to be used in service of creating deeper understanding and more authentic connections. That's where the real magic of the INFJ sixth sense truly shines. The world needs people who can see the bigger picture, who can sense what's coming before it arrives, and who can understand the complex web of human emotions and motivations that drive so much of our shared experience. That's your gift, and that's your calling. Use it wisely.